this since I didn't do too hot Monday. Okay, Mr. Chairman, we're ready.
All right. This is the meeting of the Mobile City Planning Commission for Thursday, August 6, 2020. General procedures for this remote meeting are as follows. I will announce an application. If a member of the public will attend the meeting, staff will announce their attendance and admit them at this time. For items where no one from the public is attending, staff will give an overview, including any information regarding feedback from the applicant or other interested parties. I will then open the meeting for discussion by the commission members. After discussion, I will call for a motion, a second, and then we will vote. If there is a question regarding the vote, we will do a roll call vote. After the vote, we will move on to the next item. Commission members and staff, please remember to keep your microphone on mute unless you're speaking to the meeting attendees. Roll call. Myself here. Libby Latham.
Here.
Ms. Jennifer Denson. Mr. Cart Blackwell. Ms. Shirley Sessions.
Here.
Mr. Alan Cameron. Mr. Taylor Atchison. Mr. Matt Anderson. Mr. Nick Omberger.
Here.
Ms. Bess Rich.
Here.
Mr. Don Hembry.
Here.
Mr. Jay Stubbs.
Present.
And we have a quorum. We begin with, we need to adopt the agenda.
Yes, sir.
The agenda has been sent to you and is before you. Is there a motion to adopt?
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Agenda is adopted. Begin with item number 1, our holdovers. 5536 Sermon Road West, Collins subdivision, first edition, re-subdivision of lots 10 through 12. This was recommended by board to either be withdrawn or voted down due to inaction. Could staff elaborate?
Yeah, yes, sir. We received an email from the surveyor this morning to withdraw. So, Mr. Anderson, Doug, I believe we do not need any action from the commission since it's been withdrawn.
That would be correct.
Okay. Item is withdrawn. Moving to item number 2. New subdivision applications, 3501 Springwood Drive East, Braywood subdivision. It's recommended for tentative approval. Any discussion on that item?
I have admitted Eric Jackson with Rose Surveying and Engineering. He simply wanted to be available if the commission had any questions.
Margaret, was this one that you said you had some comments or feedback on?
Yes, sir, it is. If you look at the attachments Bert sent y'all earlier this morning, we did receive one online comment from Debbie Foster, quote, "This property should not be allowed to be developed, as should any of those last lots at the end of Springwood Drive. I was evacuated out of that location in 1982 as 3 Mile Creek was coming over its banks, the second time in recent years," end quote.
Nick, could you make some comments on that, please?
Yeah, this is an existing house that's already there. I think they had some property line issues, so the property's not being developed or redeveloped. I believe part of the house, and that little drawing kind of depicts it. I think part of the house is maybe encroaching over over the property line, and they're just trying to get it straightened out. It's no new development. If you look at the lots that show vacant land, that was where the city acquired property post one of those floods that was referenced. Why we didn't require those last two, I don't know, but they just remain. They're kind of down there on a end of the cul-de-sac to themselves. So the concern of redevelopment is not. I mean, it's not a concern. I mean,
Okay,
it's just an existing house where they're again trying to correct and deal with a property line issue.
gotcha.
If I may add, this is Bert Hoffman. The house was actually built after the flood, so it's a relatively new house. And as Mr. Amberger said, this is resolving a property line issue.
Okay.
Did the house, excuse me, did the house have to be built up to make flood criteria? If it was a relatively new build, not part of that 1980s flood issue?
I'm going to assume it was built according to whatever codes were applicable at the time.
Yeah, it is an elevated house. It's elevated several feet up off the ground. So
Okay.
I assume that it is floodplain compliant. I think the creek is actually the floodplain is contained within the limits of the creek along those areas. It's just those other lots that were in there were not. They were a little bit of an anomaly, and I don't know the reason behind why those weren't acquired. I mean, people don't have to sell their houses in these buyouts, and I'm presuming that's probably part of the problem. They just didn't. They just didn't want to sell it.
Was it the same time as Shadowgate, where the city, at the time it was a commission, worked with FEMA and whatever the agency was called back then, the Corps of Engineering, and had capital to buy out people? And so some people took advantage.
Yeah,
But I think the agreement was never to build in those lots that are now vacant. I don't know about the one that's there.
Yeah,
So-
that's correct. The lots that the city acquired or either acquired in conjunction with
Mhm.
either FEMA or the Corps, they're deed restricted, where they can't be built on. And so, what's I say it's comical, but it's kind of comical. We bought the lots, we put deed restrictions on the lots, and then we fixed the problem. And so now you've got these lots that could otherwise be built on because the drainage problem is debatably fixed, except in maybe extreme events. But yet, since the properties were deed restricted, all they are is basically can remain green space
Mhm.
for city to perpetually maintain and perpetually spend, a lot of money maintaining them. Like these lots right here, were they not deed restricted, would be very valuable lots from a redevelopment standpoint. So with the Shadowgate situation, there's no real threat of these properties flooding. Again, unless there was some other, anomaly that happened, a culvert that got blocked up during a storm event. But it had to be something pretty major.
Yeah, I think they're held up for 50 years, if I'm not mistaken. So I think it's coming. It would eventually return as valuable property that the city could then market. But I think it's a 50-year not promise. I mean, those were the agreements. If it's the same as Shadowgate, and I don't know for a fact, but I remember reading those.
I'm not familiar with that. That would be require real estate attorney to make that determination if that's.
Yeah, it
what
was
how
in the
big.
Shadowgate one. So that was part of the agreement that no building would go on for 50 years, I guess, to watch it or to repair it, like you're saying.
Right. So if you take the Shadowgate as an example, there's houses all in there.
Yes, but the ones that the city built out, the agreement was 50-year rest.
That's right.
Mr. Chairman, are we taking these individually one at a time for approval? A motion?
We're taking them one at a time.
So for item number 2, I move to approve based on staff recommendations.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
No opposes. Item passes. Item number 3, 3154 Cottage Hill Road in Broussard subdivision, recommended for tentative approval.
Again, Mr. Chairman, the applicant is in the meeting and available if the commission has any questions. However, this is a one-lot subdivision to combine a leftover meets and bounds property and create a legal lot of record. The commission, about 2 months ago, recommended this for rezoning to the city council. It went to public hearing this past Tuesday, but the subdivision is simply fulfilling that recommended condition. And the applicant had no concerns with the recommended conditions, and we have not received any opposition.
I'll make that motion to approve, subject to staff recommendations.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Item passes.
Mr. Chairman, just, could you clarify, we're getting a little bit of a delay. I want to make sure that the ones that are voting, it sounds to me like they're voting in opposition, but I think there may be a delay in voting, for it. I just want to make sure that know what we're voting for.
And were there any votes for opposition?
Good. Okay. It sounded to me like there was. So
Yeah, it is an income.
Item passes. Item number 4, 1354 Athey Road, Athey Drive subdivision. It's recommended for tentative approval. Any staff comments?
Again, I've admitted the surveyor into the meeting, Mr. Orrell. He's simply here to address any questions from the commission. Staff did not receive any correspondence or phone calls with concerns or opposition to this application. And I believe Mr. Orrell's in agreement with the recommended conditions.
Yes, that's correct.
Any questions by commissioners?
Not so much a question, but just a general comment. And I think I've made this one to Mr. Orrell in the past. I mean, subdividing an existing piece of land into the surrounding built environment. I see concrete ditch there. Just, make certain that the drainage is designed appropriately to accommodate any new impervious footprints, or more importantly, the existing footprints. I mean, you really got to make sure that that you can find the appropriate balance between the new and the old. Work with the permitting staff to make sure that whether or not there's any immediate or even farther downstream of drainage issues, to make sure that the two developments can coexist.
Yeah, so on that, are you meaning in terms of a maybe drainage easement or coordinating with your team on that? Because I know that the plan here is to build probably 1,000 to 12. I know it's a big piece of property, but probably 1,200 square foot home on each lot. It's not going to be a major impact in terms of the size of the lots.
Yeah, my comment is just ask the question before you build a 1 square foot home of impervious footprint, just to be safe. I mean, ask whoever your engineer is that's also involved in this, just to ask the question and coordinate with the city staff, because they'll know or be able to look and see if there are any immediate downstream drainage concerns. And
okay,
you don't want to be the straw that breaks the camel's back.
Right. Okay.
Small houses on big lots are good in general.
Right.
It's usually the other way around.
That's right.
That's right.
I'd like to make a motion to move to approve based on staff recommendations.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item passes. Item number 5, 3950 Scenic Drive, Lamonwood subdivision, recommended for tentative approval. Staff comments.
Again, we did not receive any opposition or concern from any parties. The applicant is in the meeting and available if the commission has any questions.
Hearing no questions or comments from commissioners, is there a motion?
Move to approve subject to staff recommendation.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Item passes.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, we have quite a few that want to participate on this, so it's going to take me a minute or two to get them all in.
All right. For group applications, item number 6, 850 Edward Street, subdivision and planning approval, both recommended for approval. Africa Town Heritage House subdivision.
Ms. Pappas, we had received some letters regarding, I think it was a zoning change. That's not part of this application though, right?
That is correct. I have admitted Commissioner Ludgood as well as Jim Walker, the architect, into the meeting, that this application is strictly a planning approval, and it is because a museum requires planning approval in an R1 district. Now, we did receive one comment via our portal, which from Anderson Flynn, which states, quote, "This is a very important and positive project that is being spearheaded by one of the only great visionary policymakers in Mobile. Mobile needs more visionary policymakers that know how to represent the best for the total city at a time when the world is ready to share overwhelming support to Mobile in these difficult times," end quote. However, we also received via telephone from Mary McConnell of 812 Edward Street, this particular comment, which is opposed to additional traffic in the neighborhood. Also, there are more pressing needs for the residents in Plateau. And that was all that was stated on that. At this point, again, I've admitted Jim Walker, the architect for the project, as well as Commissioner Ludgood. I believe John Adams was wanting to participate with the county legal department, but I do not see him in the waiting room. Participate with the county legal department, but I do not see him in the waiting room. Commissioner Ludgood, could you turn the live stream off because it's creating feedback in the meeting, or turn off the volume? Thank you, but that turned you off. We will need to be able to hear you.
On mute.
Yeah, the speaker on her computer needs to be muted, but we need for her, and it may be that's how her computer's set up. Mr. Walker, can you hear us?
I think she's on mute.
I think she's good now. Okay. Commissioner Ludgood? Yay!
I'm here.
Awesome, thank you. How about Mr. Walker?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can. I, however, did not see John Adams. Was he going to call in, or did he change his mind?
I'm not sure if he's not here, he must have gotten diverted, but
Okay,
we're ready to go forward.
all right, Mr. Chairman, it's balls in your court.
Okay, again, both sections of this, the subdivision and the planning approval to allow it in the R1 district are recommended for approval. Are there any questions or comments by commissioners concerning this project?
We're looking at the subdivision application, staff recommending approval of the subdivision application. And then with conditions, and then planning approval, they're recommending findings of facts for the planning approval. Would the applicant like to address any concerns, or are there any concerns in regards to staff recommendations?
There are none from the architect.
And none from the commission, from the county commission.
Does anybody on the staff think that traffic will pose a problem here? It doesn't appear to be a very large museum, and I see maybe 18 parking spaces, 16 parking spaces. What do you think about the traffic issue that was raised by Ms. McConnell?
And Mr. Walker may want to say a few extra things, but before the applications were even submitted, he worked with Mary Beth Bergen and traffic engineering. Initially, the building was going to face Whitley Street, but with the trees and the turn and the potential for especially school buses, she suggested, and if you notice, there's a turning, they had put a turning template on it to make sure that traffic can access the site.
Okay, thank you.
Does it meet the parking space requirements?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, are we taking these separately?
Let's take them separately. Let's start with item A, the subdivision.
Move to approve based on staff recommendations.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor on part A?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Item passes. Part B, the planning approval to allow the museum in R1. Is there a motion?
Move to approve the staff recommendation adopting findings of facts A, B, and C.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Item passes. Thank you.
All right.
Moving to item number 7. (1721) and 1725 Spring Hill Avenue, IHS Medical Park Subdivision Phase 2. It's a subdivision approval that's recommended for approval, and a PUD again recommended for approval. Is there any discussion on this item from staff?
Mr. Chairman, the applicant was in agreement with staff recommendations, and we received no correspondence in opposition or with concerns.
Any questions from commissioners? Hearing none, we'll take them in 2 parts. Beginning with the subdivision, is there a motion to approve?
Move to
Motion to
approve based
approve.
on staff recommendations.
Second.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Part A passes. Part B for the PUD. Is there a motion?
Question before the motion. I'm having a momentary lapse here. Shouldn't we have findings of facts for the PUD?
Did we
We
have
do.
any? Do we have any?
Oh,
Yes,
There's A, B, and C.
correct.
There are findings of facts.
What page is that on?
Page 11 of your agenda that I sent this morning. If you like, I can read over them real quick.
That would be great.
Okay. A, the proposal promotes the objective of flexibility to permit greater flexibility in the location and arrangement of buildings and uses than is generally possible under district regulations, because it will allow the applicant to amend a previously approved planned unit development, allowing shared access between sites. B, the proposal promotes the objective of efficient land use to encourage the most efficient and sustainable use of land, especially tracts in the inner part of the city that remain undeveloped or that are appropriate for redevelopment, because it will allow an additional development to further utilize their existing site without the need to develop a new site. And C, the proposal promotes the objective of public services to encourage optimum use of available public utilities, streets, and community facilities, because now no new public services will be required by the proposed parking spaces.
Okay.
So do I need to amend my motion to include the findings of facts? I'm just finding them now. Okay. Should I?
I don't
Do I-
think, we didn't have a motion on this part yet.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Did I? Okay.
We did part A, which didn't have facts. Now we're doing part B.
Okay, good. I'm sorry.
So I need a
I don't have
separate motion
anything
for
in my
that.
water, but.
On the PUD, I move to approve based on staff recommendations and findings of facts A, B, and C.
Second,
Properly moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Item passes. Item number 8, 5535 Linwood Steiner Road and 5575 US Highway 90 West. Two parts, subdivision and zoning, both recommended for tentative approval. Any questions or comments from staff?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the application's been recommended for approval. I have just admitted the applicant. However, it's my understanding there are no concerns regarding the recommended conditions. Additionally, staff did not receive any communication with opposition or concern to the request.
Any questions or comments from commissioners?
Yeah, if I could, just again, more so for the engineer and surveyor, I would reach out to the engineering staff, permitting staff regarding the drainage concerns of this. It's a very big undeveloped lot, but there's a lot of development to the east of this, kind of downstream, and just make sure that the drainage is addressed, appropriately in the development of this property.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, we'll take both separately, starting with Part A subdivision. Is there a motion?
Move to approve, subject to staff recommendation.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Item passes. Part 8B, the zoning is recommended for approval. Is there a motion?
Move to approve based on staff recommendation.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Item passes. Moving to item 9, Skyland Park subdivision, 4350 and 4360 Government Boulevard, subdivision and zone rezoning, both recommended for approval. Any comments from staff?
Yes, sir. I have about 3 people that are wanting to address the commission on this.
Mr. Gann, I'm recused on this one.
Ms. Latham is recused.
Want to just keep sitting here.
Okay, you're no longer just sitting there. You're in the meeting now. Mr. Ogburn and Mr. Castile and William Lotta. Can you all hear us?
Okay.
Sure can.
Mr. Costello, yes, I can.
Thank you.
I can hear you.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, it's my understanding that there were no concerns regarding the staff's recommendation. However, they did want to be available to address any questions. Staff did not receive any correspondence in opposition or concern to the applications.
Well, actually, if I could speak up, we do have some issues with 2 conditions, one on the subdivision and one on the rezoning. And that would be the condition number 2 under the subdivision and condition number 1 under the rezoning. Condition number 2 under the subdivision may just need some clarification, but the way it's written is to provide a 25-foot minimum building setback line from Government Boulevard along the entire frontage of Lot B. Where you see the jog in the property line at the front of the commercial lot, there is additional right-of-way that is Highway 90 Drive. And so the question becomes, are we providing the 25-foot setback off of Highway 90 Drive as well? And also, do we have to provide the setback on that side portion, that 40-foot side portion? Because if we were to have to carry the setback around that corner, it will put our building within the setback.
The setback is required based on the zoning ordinance. As well as, I believe the subdivision regulations mirror the requirement of the zoning ordinance. Have y'all considered a vacation, or Nick, to your knowledge, is there a need for that? This service road here, it dead ends into the property.
You know, Margaret, I'm not aware of any need. I suspect that's, you know, when the residential subdivision was built, that was a stub out.
Right.
That might have been built to extend on down future, had that other property been developed as residential. I'm not certain. Well, I believe that service road's it's very likely it could be Aldot's. There definitely could be Aldot right away. Might not be considered city right away there.
You're correct, because it is Government Boulevard. I'm thinking in terms of the subdivision plat, because we had an issue. It was an action made by the commission several years ago where it allowed the modification of the setback line on the final plat, subject to a note being placed that a variance would be required. And it caused a lot of issues because the variance was then denied. That is my concern regarding, trying to get this to work, but it would still require a variance because that's specifically stated in the zoning ordinance. What could be done is the subdivision could be held over pending the outcome of the variance. So that way, whatever is decided on the variance then can be reflected on the setback line on the plat.
Margaret, it's what we're seeing. I guess what we're seeing on the screen for that lot A is a 50-foot setback.
Yes.
But so is that's what's existing, or is that what's proposed, or is what is proposed is just a 25-foot setback, which would in turn bring that setback line closer to the, what's depicted as the Highway 90 right of way?
That's what's shown on the existing plat. We, of course, staff would be agreeable along lot A for the setback to be modified to meet minimum standards. But what is really in question, I believe here, based on what William just stated, is this area in here, correct?
Correct. I would probably request, rather than holding it over, if the condition could be modified to provide the option of the variance or the vacation of the right of way or something along those lines, just so as to not to delay my client further.
But William, again, with it being out right away, I don't know if you want to go down that road of trying to get them to vacate something. I don't know.
Trust me, I try not to.
Yeah, I don't know that's a mountain you want to try to climb.
William, I would say, go ahead.
With it being an opposite angle from what we normally deal with on property lines, could it be interpreted as just 25 feet in each direction and not carried around the corner?
My reading of the condition, it says 25 foot from Government Boulevard.
That's correct.
And that's from, Margaret, is that from center line or is that from the road edge?
It's from the property line along here. I understand what you're saying. And first of all, William, don't you really only want 25 along Polaris and then going 25 along the, I'm going to say, service road here?
My guess is that was just a copy from the previous plat.
But but that is what you want it definitely in this area, correct?
I would probably defer to Mr. Castell, but yes, I would say that would be advantageous.
The question,
I would think what would be appropriate, again, because it's kind of no man's land in that corner, is that you went and did a 45-degree line. If you had the line you were just drawing with your thing, a line along there, and if you went at a 45-degree angle and connected that line with that line right there, and maybe hit that common, and then got 25 feet off of that corner, that would be probably the most advantageous. Kind of a line diagonally connecting those two straight lines where your mouse is,
rather than making a box.
I think, because it's really no man's land out there in terms of where there's a road. It's a road, but I mean, you're set back from a road that's coming into your development. So that it would seem to be that would be the appropriate balance for keep a setback off the property line some distance, but tie to those two that are parallel to the property lines.
Oh, whoops. Okay.
I don't know if that's what Williams' client would be interested in, but that would seem to be where common sense would land. In trying to.
If
trying
it
to
would
do that 90
remove
degree.
the building from that setback,
Could you treat
I
the
think-
40 foot as a side setback since it's the side of the building versus the frontage?
That would really only come into play over here. Let's see. William, do you have a proposed site plan?
this is, we're not proposing any additional improvements.
Okay, you're just, okay.
The idea of removing it from the setback is if in the future they do want to make some improvements, or if they ever plan to sell it, it could throw a title exception. Just cause, it would force it to be non-conforming is what it would do.
Well, I was going to what Carlos was saying. I mean, first of all, I think in addition, you want an amendment to item number 1 where you want at most a 25-foot setback along both streets. But there is an allowance for the 20-foot setback along a side street. But that allowance, we'd have to know which street you're going to front. Would the side street remain Polaris? Which with having commercial, it'd have to be the side street, it'd have to be Polaris.
Well, but that wouldn't be on lot B. I mean,
Margaret, I'm holding up a picture that's what I was trying to explain. I don't know if that's what William is interested in, but that something like that little sketch might be what gets him to where he needs to be.
I can't see you, Nick.
Nick, put that back up. And which one is Government Boulevard? It's, I don't,
to the
could
left.
you label?
This guy, look.
Can you walk us through it, Nick? Because you're a little bitty box.
All right, can you
I see,
see
it's just reflected backwards is what it is.
It's just you've got lines paralleling Government Boulevard, those two lines, and then you've got a line diagonally connecting the two. It's a 20
Oh, okay. I finally see it.
But that 25 feet off of that corner still puts us in the setback.
I mean, maybe it needs to be a number lesser than that, but I'm just thinking that's,
yeah.
If you have a setback that's following that weird jog, it might look something like that.
What are you considering the jog? Can you give us something to look at on here when you say the jog?
There you go.
That corner piece?
Yeah.
I'm pointing like you can see me point. Okay. All right. I thought you were talking, like, in other words, move that out to meet the other line that's already fronting Government Boulevard.
Well, the property line.
The dotted line.
The dotted line would be the setback.
Yes.
For the parcels there.
Well,
all along Highway 90, correct?
Along the property line that's there, which is, there's Highway 90 and then there's a service road along Highway 90.
Yes.
Where the jog is.
Where it says
Setback-
not
the setback-
open is the service road, correct?
The setback is really needing to follow the property line, not necessarily the road.
Yes. Okay.
What are the possible
Think I
reductions
understand.
for a side yard reduction with a side street?
Well, you're only gonna get it over here and that'll put you at 20.
Okay. I
William,
believe
what,
the corner of
William,
the
what's
building is about 18 feet off that corner
this
to corner.
here is
Correct.
about 18 feet. You know, it's already non-conforming. It doesn't comply with current zoning setbacks. The issue here is really the setback line for the subdivision plat.
Margaret, if the commission saw it appropriate, you know, you could let the diagonal line basically touch the front of the existing building if there's no plans to tear that building down. You know, I don't know that you would ever want a building any closer, but
Yeah.
that would
Yeah.
that would maybe address the concern.
The
Well-
only concern is title exceptions, and if someone were to come in and wanted to build some storage onto the back of it, and having to deal with bringing it up to current codes or those kinds of issues that could be avoided if it wasn't placed back into a non-conforming condition.
Well, you're trying to get it into so that it is conforming, so you'll have any future title issues?
Correct. Just so if the building was not within the front setback and the rezoning goes through as we hope, then I would say that this would not be a non-conforming site anymore.
It still would be as far as zoning is concerned. You still have the setback as required by the zoning ordinance. So you're still going to have a non-conforming situation. It'll be legal, but it's
Well,
still
correct.
non-conforming. It could be, I hate trying to come up with something on the fly. I'm almost really thinking we need a holdover till the 20th to address that. We've worked with things like this in the past where you have a building, an existing building that's within the setback, but you have issues associated with the setback line on the subdivision plat. Bert, unless you have some ideas, I'm really thinking we need to hold this over till the 20th.
Well, I was thinking that you could waive the 25-foot requirement from the side of the notch. And the planning commission can do that for the subdivision requirement and reduce whatever the setback would be to be in line with that side of the building. But then you would have to make that subject to obtaining the variance for the setback.
For any new development.
For any,
Yes.
Is the goal to develop on Lot B, because that's your rezoning? You said
Well,
something like
no.
storage or whatever, but you're going to keep
It's-
that building, that footprint's not changing?
correct.
Is that-
It's currently operating as a convenience store, and
Okay.
it's just to correct the zoning to what's appropriate. It's
Oh,
been
Lot B is
operating as
already
a-
rezoned? I thought Lot B was up for
No, no.
rezoning.
It is.
No?
It is currently zoned residential. It
Right.
has been operating as a convenience store for decades.
Right, but you're subdividing it now and making that a separate lot.
So, well, we're adding in some parking that was encroaching onto the adjacent residential property. And so it's just incorporating the parking, the existing parking, into that lot. So you're not crossing that property line and then rezoning it to the appropriate zone.
But when you get ready to develop your newly rezoned property, and yes, the convenience store has been operating, so it's got a history of commercial, but you don't want to have to come in to make standard criteria, in other words, because that would bring it all together and you'd have to come back. I'm not,
Well, If it was within the setback, I believe if there was anybody who wanted to add on to the building, add on storage or refrigeration or anything like that, at a certain percentage, they would have to bring it up to current codes, which would cause the issue of the setback, the building already being in the setback. And also, if it were to ever sell in the future, if someone were to run an Alta survey, get a title work done on it, it's going to throw a title exception showing that the building is non-compliant.
The setback issue only would apply to new construction or addition to that portion of the building. And then the full compliance issue is only going to apply regarding trees and landscaping if you do more than a 50% addition.
With Bert's proposal, would that satisfy the needs of the applicant?
I believe it would. To reduce that side setback to the building face.
Bert, would you go back over your proposal again, please?
Yes, you reduce the setback on the notch area so that you would project a line from the side of the building forward towards Highway 90. That would be the setback from the notch. And then where the 25-foot setback would be from the service road, that could extend to the side face of the building. So it would lock in that one corner of the building from any expansion towards the common property line in that area.
So would that description be, would item number 2 be changed to reflect that proposal?
Well, on the, yes, item number 2 would have to be revised to provide the 25-foot except where waived by the Planning Commission, as described in the meeting, which we would clarify.
Is this what you're saying, Bert? Minus
kind of.
Minus whatever
Yeah,
the dimension is. Just whatever that dimension.
Whatever that dimension is, yes.
Margaret, do you see any issues with that?
No, I do not. William, I just want to clarify though, in addition to that, you're asking for 25 feet along both Polaris and Highway 90 Drive.
Correct. And so that would revise item number 1
Yes.
on the subdivision.
And for the commission, I was just made aware that it's believed that Highway 90 service road is in fact city right of way, not part of government street. So there is a potential that it could be vacated there.
Okay, so these items are referring to the subdivision, which we need to deal with prior to the zoning application, correct?
Is it possible to hold over the subdivision and let the rezoning keep moving forward? With the condition of the completion of the subdivision process?
Just for a quick question, the configuration of your rezoning is not going to change, correct?
Correct.
There's no reason why the rezoning cannot proceed and hold over the sub.
Do you think it should also be something where, since now we learned this is a city right of way instead of ALDOT, which might not be as cumbersome, that it include a vacation also?
I would say the applicant should evaluate proceeding with the vacation. My concern for any applicant is to tell them to go get one and then for some reason it not be approved.
Yeah, nobody can promise it. But
Right.
if you look at Lot B, this is going to eventually become a PUD if that's a whole different business back there. It's going to have to share entry. It doesn't
That's a
have
storage building.
Right
The
now,
two
today,
buildings on Lot B,
today,
uh,
yeah.
that's all one lot.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, okay.
That's
All
just,
right,
I think you're seeing a fence.
Okay, I get
Uh,
it. Okay, so that's all one building and that's all, you're coming in for the B2 on all of that.
That's correct.
And it's already acting as B2. Okay, yes, I'm sorry. I was, never mind. Okay, it's hard when you're
I
challenged.
understand.
Okay,
So I think the consensus is to hold over the subdivision until the next meeting.
Are you in agreement, William?
Yes.
Okay, I've moved to hold over the subdivision until what was it, August 20th?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor for holdover till August 20th?
Aye.
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 And then on the zoning, we're okay with moving forward with the zoning without the subdivision?
Correct. That, now I think, William, didn't you have an issue with one of the conditions?
That's correct. The only issue is that because this parking was encroaching onto the residential lot, they're only trying to take in that parking. The property line is basically on the backside of that side parking.
Where's the parking? I just see a building.
You see where it says text along that side there?
Uh-huh.
There's parking in that area.
So lot A is R1 is what you're saying?
Let me
Yeah.
flip back. Hold on. Okay, all of this is still zoned residentially,
Mhm.
but the existing lot line follows here where the cursor is. And as you can see, the existing condition is such that there's parking already on that residentially developed property, which is part of the goal of these applications by shifting that lot line to follow the existing condition of the site.
And so since it's right on that parking, there could be some issues with that residential buffer, providing it currently.
But there's no reason why a privacy fence could not be provided.
I just have to look at the parking spaces and their size. I'm not sure that there's any room behind the paving that's there and the property line.
Do we need to hold this over as well?
You have an existing condition, which is non-conforming. It's probably been there for over 50 years. But it is getting a rezoning. And at that point, this will be zoned B2, and any conforming B2 use or uses could go in there. So
Well, I don't think this removes the compliance with the buffer ordinance moving forward, but rather eliminates the requirement to put it in currently.
No, you're rezoning.
But I mean, moving forward, if it was ever redeveloped, I would still think you would have to put in that buffer.
you
The
would, but
question is
right,
whether it's right now versus upon redevelopment. Right now, there's no work being planned for either of these sites.
Wait a minute, you know what's going on in the R1? So is there a connectivity there, or you're just guessing there's nothing to go on R1, on the R1?
Well, it's an existing building. All of this is existing.
The
So we're
homes
not
there
planning any
now.
improvements. We're just trying to address the issue that the parking was over.
And
the
that's not a
property line.
commercial use today. Is
None of
that
it
building
is-
a commercial use?
No, it is a residential home.
Okay, then I think it should meet the zoning code for sure then. I was thinking it was also non-conforming. Thanks for filling in that gap.
Both the house and the convenience store have been on the respective properties since at least 1960.
Mhm, mhm. Right, but it's nice when you have commercial abutting residential. I mean, should they want to come in and divvy that site up, but keep it residential? I mean, if there's no activity, but I didn't realize it was residential, so I see more the need to separate the two, because now this indeed does have the B2 zoning. So if that, is the recommendation and then passes council. I think that's how you get things cleaned up, if you follow your codes. And between B1 or B2 and R1, we have buffering and fencing. It's either landscaping or a privacy fence. And that we've done that every time we've had an opportunity to see a rezoning.
Yes, and I would agree that if there was any work or redevelopment to be done on this commercial lot, that it would then have to comply with that regulation.
Sometimes those things don't always get passed around, that it was part of the condition. This way, it's just an automatic thing because it's following city code of having those two things happen, a rezoning with the buffering.
I think we've gotten so deep into the weeds now, I think we just need to hold it over along with the subdivision and let's get some clarity on it, figure out what we're doing so we know what we're doing, and deal with it all at one time. So I'll make a motion to hold it over, the zoning over until the next meeting as well.
Guess I'll second that. If he doesn't think he can get the fence, maybe he can, so.
That's just a couple of weeks.
Right. I second that.
Properly moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor of hold over until August 20th?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? The items held over till August 20th. That's both items, A and B. That concludes the items on the agenda. Is there anything else from staff?
I do not have anything.
Okay, thank you. There being nothing, is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
Probably moved in second. Meeting is adjourned.